Welcome or welcome back. It's really good to see you. I hope you're doing well today. My name is Vix and this is my channel, Goddess of Gore, where I like to talk about horror, thriller, fantasy and sci-fi books. Today I thought I would talk about the two books I read last week. I know I had a lot of health problems going on the last few weeks and I had a lot of important appointments that kind of sidetracked my attention last week and I couldn't concentrate on my books, but they're all done with now, so I'm back to the books. Well, that was a rather long explanation to why I only read 2 books, wasn't it? Anyway, should we just get on with the books, because this really could have been a YouTube short. So I started with one of my commitment reads for July, Fragile Things, Short Fictions and Wonders by Neil Gaiman. I have read 2 short story collections by Neil before and I really didn't enjoy them, so I don't know why I expected this to be any different really. There were some good ones and not so good ones, and even some poetry which I'm just not intelligent enough to understand poetry, so poetry is always wasted on me. Honestly, don't ever recommend poetry to me. My daughter is the poetry lover and I'm not. It's a bit... yeah, so I can include this book with the other 2, so I can safely say that I have now read 3 short story collections by Neil Gaiman, none of which I enjoyed. It was all a bit meh. The opener, A Study in Emerald, was a kind of twisty Sherlock Holmes story, and I thought from that moment on this wasn't going to be for me. The first story should be the best, shouldn't it? October in the Chair was a story in which the months of the year tell each other tales, and October tells a ghost story, so that was okay. In Bitter Grounds, that was a zombie tale, another okay story. Other People was one of the other good ones, about a demon in hell torturing himself. And even The Monarch of the Glen, a short story featuring Shadow from American Gods, wasn't that good. Feeders and Eaters was probably one of my favourite out of the whole collection though. The story was of an old woman called Mrs. Corvier who eats creatures alive in order to regain her youth. After killing her cat, the man telling the story gives himself to her to be her next victim. And then I read Echo by Thomas Olde Heuvelt. Now, I'm probably only one of those people who wasn't wowed by Hex. I mean, it was good and it was an interesting take on the witch trope in a horror book, but there were a lot of plot holes in that story that I just couldn't get fully on board with. Now, hang on, I enjoyed it, don't come for me, I just didn't love it, okay? Steady. Now this book has an amazing opener, 5 stars, so I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be bloody amazing. It was so creepy, super disturbing, about a woman waiting for the rest of her family or friends or whatever to get to this isolated snow cabin. When she awakens with the need to go to the toilet, checking her phone, she realises that no one else has arrived yet and gets kind of spooked when she sees shadows and faces staring up at her where she stands on the landing at the top of the stairs. These people get closer with every blink, every time she closes her eyes, a bit like the weeping angels in Doctor Who. Terrifying. And when she phones Sam, her expected guest, to find out how far away he is, she runs back into bed. When she eventually tells him about the people who are now standing in her bedroom, all he asks is, but do they have their eyes? So at this point I'm so excited to read this book, except what happened to the scary Thomas? I mean, I don't have a physical copy of this book, just the digital, but maybe 3% at the start of this book and 10% at the end are good. Really, really good, but the rest, waffle. And it's so long and it's so repetitive. It's filler. It's the opposite of that Sum 41 album. This was all filler and no killer. So Nick and his friend Augustine go and climb a mountain. Only one comes back, and he has had his face torn open by something. Officially, he fell and had it bust open by some sharp rocks, but the injuries apparently don't add up, and his husband Sam starts to get weirded out by his odd behaviour, saying things like, "The dark pockets on the mountain are its eyes," and gouging out all of the eyes in photographs of him and Augustine from the climb. Nick is acting very weird. Nick is having blackouts and finding himself in the basement of the house completely naked, refusing to let the bandages come off his face. And his breath is chillingly cold instead of warm, as if the mountain and the ice is taking over him. And why is everyone who comes into contact with Nick killing themselves? This was another okay book that I'm almost too scared to start anything else. I do hope you're having a better start to July than I am. Like I said, I was just having an off week, I'm sure. Maybe an early week 3, perhaps. Who knows? Have you read these books? Did you enjoy them? If not, I hope I haven't put you off them. Don't forget to like this video if you did, and subscribe if you haven't already. And after that, do you even want to stick around for a bit longer? Now, after 2 books, do I even have a favourite quote this week? Of course I do. As I said, it was a cracking opener. Julia sees the people in the stairwell when she gets up at night to pee. They're standing there in the dark and staring up at her, frozen like a photograph, as if they've been waiting for her all along. Her left foot is already on the top stair, and she's about to put the right foot on the next when her fingers clamp on the handrail compulsively, and she stops. Of course she stops, because suddenly it penetrates her drowsy brain. There are people in the stairwell and they're staring at her. Spooky. Make some good book choices this week, my friends, and I hope to see you all again soon. Until next time, bye-bye.